You're with the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for staying with us. Early research in artificial intelligence used the human brain as a model for building machines that could understand language, today's large language models, or LLMs. Computational neuroscientist Dr. Terry Sejnowski at the Salk Institute in San Diego is a pioneer in the field. He spoke with IdeaStream's Jeff St. Clair about the links between human and artificial intelligence and the push to build even smarter machines. We can't take your calls right now, but we welcome your questions and comments. You can email us at soi@ideastream.org. Here's that conversation.
We're speaking with Terry Sejnowski. He is a pioneer in the field of computational neuroscience. Dr. Sejnowski, great to have you along today.
Great to be here.
Are you originally from Cleveland?
I indeed am a Clevelander. I was born in Cleveland, went to high school, college, and left when I was going to graduate school at Princeton.
So you have cred here.
Right.
I want to begin talking about your new book. It's called ChatGPT and the Future of AI, the Deep Language Revolution. I want to talk for a minute about the GPT part of ChatGPT. What does that stand for, and what does it mean?
That's an acronym for a generative system that can generate output, not just recognizing, but also creating its own output. Stands for pre-trained, and this is a big difference between the large language model and humans, for example. All the learning takes place long before it gets put out into the public. And it takes a tremendous amount of computing. The largest language models now take hundreds of millions of dollars of computer time just to train them. They're that big. Once that's done, you do a little fine tuning, and now it doesn't learn anything new. So you can talk to it, and it won't, it may explain something to it, but it's going to forget it, right? Everything stops, and there's no new learning taking place. And finally, T stands for transformer. And that was the name of the architecture that was, it was 2017. It was a group from Google that wrote this paper. It was called Attention is All You Need. And attention is a part of the transformer. And it's a part of the transformer that helps it keep track of everything that you said in your dialogue. That is something that we know the brain can do. And they did that. They put that into a generative model. And this is the amazing thing. Guess how it was trained? It was trained to predict the next word in the sentence. That's all it did. And if you want to be able to predict the next word, you have to understand something about the meaning of the word, right? How it fits into the sentence. So it actually had to figure out internally how to represent meaning. And that's the real trick.
How does your experience in neuroscience and understanding the brain help you to develop these neural networks for AI computing?
This is really a new era. The revolution has taken place both in AI simultaneously with neuroscience. And so the two now are really converging. So this is really exciting. So we said, well, let's pop the hood and see if we can learn from the brain, whether we can understand the principles and incorporate them into the smaller neural networks. Now, what we didn't know was how well it would scale. And by that, I mean, if the network gets bigger and bigger, does it get better and better? Can it solve bigger and bigger problems? I have to say, I calculated a rough idea of how much computational power there was in the brain, and I predicted it would be in 2015 when Moore's law, which is the exponential growth of computing, it doubles every 2 years. Well, I figured by 2015 we should be close to brain scale, and sure enough, in 2012, Geoffrey Hinton was able to solve a very difficult problem in computer vision, recognizing objects and images invariant to the position, size, and rotation. That was a very difficult problem, and he showed that a particular type of neural network called the convolutional neural network was able to solve with the largest existing database, 20 million images. He was able to show you could learn how to do that as well as a human. So that was a turning point. It was a great. So that's one of the good things physicists do is make good estimates. So that was what I thought.
Yeah, you're right on with that one. Do you think there is something going on there? Do you think that systems like ChatGPT are thinking, or they have the ability to think?
Yes and no. I think that there are some aspects of the behavior which are undoubtedly something that you would call thinking. There's no doubt about it. In other words, I think it can't answer your questions unless it understands the question. I just don't see how that could be done without having what we call understanding. Now, the thinking that these large language models do may not be exactly the same as a human. And I'll give you one example. So it's a problem I'm working on right now, which is what happens after our discussion, or I go to a lecture, or I read a book. Afterwards I can think about it. I could plan the future. I can think about the past, and my brain is always active. It generates activity on its own. It doesn't need an outside person talking to me. It doesn't need any sensory input at all. But ChatGPT, the moment you stop talking to it, it just goes blank. There's no self-generated thought. There's no internal dialogue. In this case, monologue. There's no internal thinking that it does with itself, and that's a big difference. As human beings, they reflect, they are creative. In the absence of any outside motion, motor or sensory. That's the problem I'm working on, because we don't know how humans do that. That's an open problem. It's called long-term working memory. And I recently got a big grant from the National Institutes of Health to work on that problem. And I think that if we could understand how the brain does that, we should be able to transplant that into a large language model.
And do you see that happening someday with the large language models, that they might gain a sense of self, get that internal dialogue you're talking about?
Things are moving so quickly. I mean, I just can't believe at the rate things are moving. I would say that it's inevitable.
We're talking with Dr. Terry Sejnowski. He's author of ChatGPT and the Future of AI, the Deep Language Revolution, a computational neuroscientist at the Salk Institute in San Diego. Are you at all worried about where AI is heading and maybe what safeguards should or should not be put in place?
This is an issue that a lot of people in AI are concerned about. And a lot of work is being put into to put in guardrails to prevent these large language models from saying things that are inappropriate, improper, or misleading, or hallucinating. Right? These are known problems. However, we are at a stage right now which is very early, very early. In fact, compared to, say, airplanes, it's at a Wright brothers stage, when we just off the ground. And the last thing that the Wright brothers were able to do was to control the airplane, to point it in the right direction without crashing.
Right.
And that's where we are. We have this, we've got off the ground, but we don't know how to control it. So that's where we are. But these are technical problems, and the engineers are going to solve them. There's enough resources and pressure. All of those problems are going to be solved. Now, the real concern, and my good friend Geoffrey Hinton, of course, is the one I think who has really articulated this in a way that is compelling, is that at some point it will become smarter than we are. It will achieve a different level. We know it can code, right? It can write computer programs. If it can understand the computer programs, then it should be able to write a computer program that will make it smarter, right? And that's and the better the more smarter it is, the better the computer program that it can write. So it's a positive feedback loop that can run away. And if that happens, we might be in trouble.
Your former collaborator, Geoffrey Hinton, in his Nobel Prize speech, did give a stark warning about AI. I want to play a clip from that. Here's Geoffrey Hinton in his Nobel Prize acceptance speech in 2024.
The rapid progress in AI comes with many short-term risks. It has already created divisive echo chambers by offering people content that makes them indignant. It is already being used by authoritarian governments for massive surveillance and by cybercriminals for phishing attacks. In the near future, AI may be used to create terrible new viruses and horrendous lethal weapons that decide by themselves who to kill or maim. All of these short-term risks require urgent and forceful attention from governments and international organizations. There is also a longer-term existential threat that will arise when we create digital beings that are more intelligent than ourselves. We have no idea whether we can stay in control.
I was just wondering if you heard that speech and whether you were kind of nodding along with him or you were cringing a bit.
I'm completely behind Jeff about his concerns, and I support him. We really have to be careful. We have to be cautious, and we have to be prepared. And so I'm glad that Jeffrey and others are worried about it, because that if these smart people worry about it, we'll be safer. That having been said, let me just tell you that all technology can be used for good and bad. There are problems, for example, with biotechnology. We have the power, a godlike power, to create new viruses, for example, that could wipe out all of humanity, right? That's an existential threat. But we haven't. And the reason is that biologists have self-regulated themselves. They've put in controls. So, we need to do the same thing. We need to self-regulate AI. And we're already doing that, by the way. And obviously, companies have to self-regulate, because otherwise people are going to sue them. So this is something we're in the very early stages. And something to keep in mind is that the real unintended consequences, we don't even know what they are yet. Both, on the benefit and risk side, we don't know what those are. The actual ways that they can be used will unfold in the future. And if we regulate it too prematurely and prevent ourselves from getting to that point, we won't know. We won't know what might happen going in both directions.
We've been talking to Dr. Terry Sejnowski. He's a pioneer in the field of computational neuroscience and author of the book ChatGPT and the Future of AI, the Deep Language Revolution. Dr. Sejnowski, thank you so much.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Again, that was AI pioneer Terry Sejnowski and IdeaStream's Jeff St. Clair.